Guys, this Bad Batch episode rocked. Bad Batch episode 11, let's conversationalize. Okay guys, so the last episode of the Bad Batch, and this little Bad Batch run through that I've had with you guys wasn't the best. It was like okay, but not great, like the previous, filler episodes. This episode, yes, one word, yes, that's more like it. That's the hot streak I was looking for in the last one. Yes. I'm glad we only had a spell of just like one episode being not great, and then we get back to hot streak. I'm really glad for that because, wow, this episode is very important to me. I will tell you guys why as we get into it. But this one was awesome. Starts out with a ship blasting out of hyperspace, like ravaged. Like smoke coming off, sparks, all destroyed. And it's hurtling toward this planet, but there's this one clone left in this ship that's all dark, and you hear a bunch of different noises and screaming, and this guy's wandering through the ship, and he's like, he has this electro staff, this electro rod, and he's like, oh, and then some creature grabs him from the top, and you don't know what it is. This episode is very Jurassic Park. Then we see what is assumed, especially by the end of this episode, to be another cloning facility that was teased at the end of the last season of the Bad Batch. The place where Nala Se was taken. She is the Kaminoan scientist girl from the Clone Wars who supervised the cloning of the clones and stuff and helped do that. But apparently she's a prisoner there, even though at the end of the last season it looked like she was coming to help them clone more things. But apparently she's a prisoner there. She's not been willing to cooperate. There's this other professor that has come in who's not a Kaminoan. He's a human. His name is Dr. Hemlock. First of all, that is a perfect evil scientist, evil professor name. Not to mention the fact that he is as creepy as I'll get out. In fact, he reminded me, there's like a Looney Tunes episode where Bugs ends up coming across this evil scientist who tries to lead him into getting attacked by his like giant furry red monster. I don't remember the scientist character's name, but that's very similar. He reminded me of this guy. Like his voice is so low and creepy, like a whisper. It's just he's messed up. He's off-putting. He's an unsettling person, mental. Blah. But Nala Se hasn't been willing to cooperate with helping this guy clone more things because of what they did to her home planet Kamino, basically what they did to her city, Topoka City. Hemlock says that the research that she did there is actually all still intact, and that he reveals that apparently Lama Su, the Prime Minister of Kamino, is alive, and that is insane to hear because, again, at the end of the last season, it's not shown, but it's heavily alluded to that the clones come in and kill him. That is, it is a assassination. Tying up loose ends is what that seemed like. But apparently he survived. Apparently they allowed him to live and took him as a prisoner. That's interesting. I don't know what reason they would have to do that. It seemed like they were destroying all the evidence of Kamino and everything to do with Kamino, except Nala Se because they needed her for the cloning. But they left him alive. So that's insane by itself. Then we get to the Bad Batch, traveling through hyperspace, and they're having a conversation with Sid over a hologram. And Sid is all like, well, I don't know what you guys are worried about. You're fine now. You got off the planet. It's all great. And the Bad Batch, as they should be, are ticked off at her for leaving them there for dead. Even Omega's like, you stranded us. You left us. Come on. Like, after all the stuff the Bad Batch has done for her. And so she's all like, well, you clearly have forgotten all the good things I've done for you, being the worst character ever. And she tells him about this downed ship on this planet that apparently has some cargo that the Bad Batch could retrieve without giving them any other intel than just that. And Sid says, I'll cut you in on 30%. I'll be generous. And the Bad Batch just wait. Or Tech just says, like, that's our standard offer. She keeps upping it, like, by the smallest amounts, and the Bad Batch just stays silent until she gets to 50. And I'm like, that's more like it. That's the way we go. That's how we do this. And they settled that deal. The main part that was exciting about that scene is that they were discussing leaving her. They were like, maybe this just be our last mission, and we leave it at that. But we won't want to be with Sid anymore. She stinks. And I'm so glad they don't, because I agree. She definitely stinks. Get away from her. That's what I've been saying throughout my reviews, that they need to get away from Sid because she's limiting the story. And it sounds like that's what they're doing, and I'm really glad for that. But they go to the ship on this planet. I don't know what planet it is. I don't believe they name it, but I could be wrong about that. They go to the ship. It's crashed in the forest. And there's a village nearby. And they walk through the ship. It's an unmarked ship, so they don't know who it belongs to. It belongs to the Empire. But they're walking through the halls. Tech goes to get the power back on the bridge. And they find this laboratory. And these cloning pods. This Kaminoan cloning equipment. Omega points out that it's Kaminoan. And then they find the monster. The tension keeps revving up because you think it's where Tech is. You think it's near the bridge because you keep hearing noises. There's even this droid pops out that keeps saying, danger, 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 and then like just turns off slowly, like, danger. And that's already creepy enough. Like, I was literally the whole time, I was like, oh, heck no, don't do that. Don't turn that corner. Don't look down that hall. Don't you dare. Don't zoom in. It's behind you. It's behind you. Just run for your life. Oh my gosh, Jurassic Park. The vibrations in the water. That's what that felt like. But then the Hunter, Wrecker, and Omega in the laboratory, Tech is in the bridge, they're in the laboratory, they find the monster. And you know the scariest part about it? I'm surprised they let this in the episode. This seemed a little violent for Bad Batch, but it's like covered in shadow, but there is an arm of someone hanging out of the creature's mouth. Yikes! Like, you could tell that's what that is. Yikes! Doesn't usually get that dark. I mean, in Clone Wars it got a little dark like that a few times, but that's a little revving up the darkness a little bit. But it, like, swallows the arm and then horrifyingly tries to attack them. It escapes. They realize that it harnesses power from electricity and gets bigger. And throughout all of this, I'm thinking... Because I had seen, like, the cover of the episode, and just from that small glimpse, I usually don't like any spoilers, but just from that small glimpse, I was like, is that the Zillo Beast? Is that the Zillo Beast? Because if that's the Zillo Beast, I will cry tears of joy. If you don't know what the Zillo Beast is, it was featured in some of the last episodes of Clone Wars Season 2. First one is called, it's a two-parter. First one is called The Zillo Beast. The next one is called The Zillo Beast Strikes Back. And it is a story about how Anakin and Mace Windu find this giant Godzilla-sized monster on the planet Malastare that was said to be extinct for ages. And they found one, and it is massive, and a lightsaber couldn't even cut this thing. That's how strong its armor was. And by the end of that two-part arc, Chancellor Palpatine foolishly takes the Zillo Beast to Coruscant. It goes rampage. It escapes. It goes rampage. Destroys a bunch of Coruscant, a bunch of the city. They finally have to destroy it with a toxin. So they kill the Zillo Beast. And at the end of it, Palpatine teased. He gave some new orders to the scientist that was supervising all of it. And he's like, here's some new orders. And she's like, this is not Nala Se. This is a different scientist. But she's like, you want me to clone the beast? And that's it. That's all we got at the end of Clone Wars Season 2. Do you know how long ago that was? Yikes. Do you know how much Star Wars and different things in pop culture we've had since then? I have been waiting, just like the Commander Cody thing, waiting to see what happened to him after Order 66. I have been waiting for them to tell me to finish the Zillo Beast story literally for years. I've been waiting for them to bring back up that plot point, and they haven't at all. Like, they didn't in Rebels. They didn't in any other things they've done, not in Mandalorian, not nothing. That huge cliffhanger of like, clone the beast, what? And then they don't do it. Rectified. It is rectified. Because the thing that the Bad Batch find in this episode, my theory was correct. It goes toward the nearby village to like the power plant that supplies the power for the village, harnesses all the power. Meanwhile, Tech and Omega are in the laboratory trying to figure out what the thing is. And Tech is like looking at the schematics for like the creature itself, like the lab records for the monster. It shows you a bit of the picture, then he swipes one more time, then you see his face and not the picture, and you just see the shock in his eyes because he has his helmet on, so you see the shock in his eyes. He's like, oh, this is going to get very big. Because Omega's like, how big or something? He's like, oh, it's going to get very big. Then Hunter and Wrecker are in the Marauder trying to chase down the monster, and it fully grows into the Zillo Beast as we know it from the Clone Wars. That was the most nuts. Because like the way they do, like they build up the tension. Once Tech sees that last picture, he alerts Hunter. It's the monster that attacked a Coruscant during the war. And that's all I needed to hear. They didn't say Zillo Beast, and I thought it was actually kind of cool that they didn't say it at first. It's the monster that attacked Coruscant during the war. That's all a diehard Clone Wars fan needs to hear to go, it's the Zillo Beast! And it shows up and starts attacking. It just like, yes! 20 billion year retribution! Ah! If you can't tell, I'm a little excited. It was so awesome. But then the Empire comes in, like sends 3 Star Cruisers. Which is like nuts. Like that's how important they treat this thing, is they are willing to send 3 Star Cruisers out, which normally would attract a lot of attention, to try to subdue this creature. Because that's how powerful it is. Because they showed that in the Clone Wars, how powerful it actually was. To be able to resist a lightsaber. But they do subdue it using the same way, not the toxin. It was a different way that they also established in the Clone Wars of subduing it. But like it like puts it to sleep using these specific cannons that they had in the Clone Wars, these Republic cannons. It's that same technology. I could tell it was that they used to subdue it this time, but they capture the beast and put it back in a giant, like massive cloning tube. And the Bad Batch escaped the Empire. But it's interesting because the citizens that clearly saw the Zillo Beast were then captured by the Empire because that's how paranoid the Empire was of that information getting out. That's how desperate they are for that not to be, the secret not to be let out. Then the Bad Batch review the situation, I don't know what that is, the situation on the Marauder after they've escaped. Tech had transferred the data from the downed Imperial ship to his control device. And so he was reviewing it on the Marauder, and he's like, Hunter, they didn't destroy Kamino to end cloning. They destroyed Kamino to control it. Chancellor Palpatine ordered this before he even became Emperor. He's planning to use the armor of the Zillo Beast, like, to weaponize it. Like he said, like, the whole purpose was, the reason that all that got started in the Clone Wars, that was it. He wanted to weaponize the Zillo Beast, use the armor, because when he heard that it was impenetrable to lightsabers, even lightsabers couldn't cut through it, he was like, I have to get that. I have to use that. I have to weaponize that. That could be one of the greatest advantages and weapons in the history of the galaxy. An impenetrable armor, like if we could line soldiers and ships with this. Clearly they don't, because by the time of the original trilogy, they have none of this stuff. So clearly at some point, the Bad Batch is going to have to stop this from spreading. But then Hunter tells Tech, he's like, transfer this information to Echo and Rex. Let them see it so they can know what to do, so they can know what our next move is. Because he understands how serious this is. Like, they were trying to cover this up. Like, they're directing all of their cloning efforts to the Zillo Beast. Like, it was never about cloning any more clones. Like, they can just conscript regular people as stormtroopers for that. They want to clone the Zillo Beast. That is nuts. That is such a crazy way to take that, place to take that. That is just so cool. Then the end of the episode, they're back at the cloning facility that's on this one planet. I believe it's called Tantus, the new cloning facility that I referred to earlier. And Lama Su has been taken to Dr. Hemlock. And Dr. Hemlock basically says, what is it going to take for Nala Se, the Kaminoan professor girl, to cooperate? And Lama Su, like the jerk he always has been, says, you know, there's this young clone girl that she really wants back. Find her and I think she'll do anything you say. And then Dr. Hemlock is like, well, we have a lot to discuss. They want Omega. I should have seen that coming. They're trying to get Omega again. So now we have more of a vision for what the next 5 episodes are going to look like. And that's good, because we did need more of a vision. That's been the main problem of this season, is that it hasn't been focused. There's been some awesome episodes, then there's been some lackluster episodes, and we haven't had a main focus for the whole season. Definitely not the through line that we had for the last one, but this episode, where it's looking like it's taking things, so long as, again, we don't have any filler ones after. I know I said that before, but still, I have hope, especially after this one. The Zillo Beast, the fact that they brought that back, they even said they had the civilians in custody, and they said they were going to deal with them, which means that they might destroy the civilians who saw the Zillo Beast. That's how insanely paranoid. That's nuts. It's nuts. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap.